Welcome in, everybody, to the 5th episode of the Respawn podcast. My name is Joey Olberding.
My name is Colin Rhoads.
And your name, our special guest, is Kevin Reape, the founder of Mizzou Esports.
What's up, guys?
Hello, Kevin. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Extremely excited to have you on. Very special guest.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm pumped to be here. It's the first time I've been here in a few months, probably. Feels pretty good.
Yeah, how was it walking back in?
Felt good, out of habit. I parked in the same parking spot I always did in before, across the parking lot, and strolled in. The place looks a little different. More people here. Mizzou Rec members gaming in the lounge, which is something I dreamed of seeing people doing in that space for a long time. So it's pretty cool to come in and see that.
Yeah, really cool. What about this space? Talk to us about the broadcast room that we're in right now.
Yeah, so the room that we're in right now, I didn't really ever know what we were going to do with this space, but we asked them to paint it dark gray so that we could do something cool with it. We put a TV up, and it was a team meeting room.
Yeah, it used to be the old VOD review room.
VOD review room.
Back in the day.
Yeah, so we took some photos of people. I don't know how often it was used for VOD reviews, but that's what it was for. It had some team meetings in here for sure in the past. Right now, what I'm looking at is it looks to be a legitimate studio. I see a handful of cameras and some lights, a sound mixer, all kinds of stuff. So it's a completely converted room. I like it.
Yeah, we use this room. I mean, at least I use this room definitely a lot more than we use the VOD review room. It got used, but this is like, we're in here every night, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, we use this for all sorts of things. It's not just broadcast, it's for recording. I mean, we record a podcast in here, obviously, but it's more than that. I mean, it really is, the place for anybody to do anything. I mean, we have two top-of-the-line PCs that we use for this kind of stuff. We have professional cameras, lights, what have you. It's a very cool space, and we even have a cool desk. So, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, this desk is amazing because we got this from MUTV whenever they had to downsize. And they asked if we wanted their massive broadcasting desk.
And you
I said,
absolutely.
Of course.
Yeah.
And then one day during the COVID mess, a bunch of students came in and painted it up like this. And now it looks pretty darn good.
Is that how a lot of this stuff was? Like, was it a lot of like gifts or donations of just like physical things that were brought in?
To an extent, a lot of the equipment side of things that you see that we never really used much, but those cameras, and we even had some teleprompters at one point. At one point, we had probably a 10-foot by 10-foot felt podcasting booth.
Oh.
So one person could sit in this completely soundproof room and close the door. It would be 1,000,000 degrees, and you could record audio, and it would sound great. We never really did anything with it. We took it as a donation from MUTV, and then we donated it to MU Healthcare. So we just held on to it for a while. It was gigantic. It looked cool, I guess. It kind of looked more bizarre than cool. But it was a talking piece for a while.
I can only imagine how hot that could be because I've recorded in places like that before, and if it really is like a tiny, tiny room, like I'm sure it would sound good, but
MUTV had it in the basement of the student center, and they had like a ventilation system so it could come in and some cool air could come in.
But like for what? Like a one-person podcast?
I don't know what they were doing. I do not know.
I mean, I guess if you were to do like a story, right, and you wanted to overlay some audio on the story, you could go in there.
Or if you're really, really narcissistic and you really love the sound of your own voice, it's perfect for that too.
That's Joey, what I did in it. I like the sound of my voice. I would just go in there and talk to myself.
Yeah.
You think you could have a whole hour of just you talking?
No, I thought I could for a while. It didn't work out. When I did a podcast, I had to have somebody sit next to me.
That was my podcast in high school. I would just ramble for half an hour, edit it, and it was just the sound of my own voice. So I mean, I got used to it. I'm not too narcissistic. I don't love it, but I deal with it.
So let's talk about how you got started, Kevin. Let's talk about your journey. How did it all start? Was it something that you always wanted to do? Was it something that just kind of happened?
Well, okay. So how I got started, I could go way back and say like back in the day, I had a PlayStation 1. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how I got into the gaming scene. Played a lot of Grand Theft Auto. Vice City was my favorite game growing up. Call of Duty, of course, in the dorm rooms. So always dabbled in the gaming scene, but on the console side.
Mm-hmm.
But
you went to Mizzou?
I did go to Mizzou. Yeah, so we could. Yes, I went to Mizzou. Came here in 2010. Mm-hmm. Graduated in 2014 in the business school. So I had a marketing degree. I started working for the university a day after I graduated. So I had a job lined up with campus dining services on campus. I was a student employee there. since 2012. So I've actually been an employee of the university in one way or another for 10 years now, which is pretty crazy. But I did graduate from 2014. So I've been kind of a Mizzou lifer at this point.
Where did you grow up? Where are you from?
St. Charles.
Okay. So then you came to Columbia and you loved Columbia?
I did. I came here for a football game in 2009. I don't remember who we were playing, but it was a pretty cool experience. And I was one of those people who stepped foot on campus and was like, there's no reason to tour anywhere else. There's no reason to go anywhere else. This is going to be where I'm going to set up shop. And it's one of the best decisions I've ever made by far. My now wife, we were dating in senior year of high school. She came here as well. And then my best buddy, Tony Mariani, we were buddies since preschool days. Lived in the same neighborhood growing up, and then he came here as well. We lived in the dorms together. So I had my close group when I got here. And then over the next 4 years, of course, met a whole lot of other people and learned a whole lot. So while I was a student here, I think I was an average student for sure, but still, of course, was playing the games on the side and whatnot. And when I first started working, I spent the next 4 years trying to learn as much as I could about what the business I was in, marketing, a lot of that, and social media management and whatnot. But the gaming side was something that I always had at least 2 monitors, sometimes 3 monitors in my office. And I would have Twitch pulled up on the side and kind of watch the growth of Twitch and people like Dr. Disrespect and Summit. And so I had not a crazy amount of expertise in anything, but I had my pulse on the industry.
So I was going to ask, in 2010, when you were at Mizzou, was esports even a thing yet? Like, was Twitch even a thing yet?
Back then, I certainly was probably a thing. I was not into it in 2010. I was playing Call of Duty Black Ops 2 in my dorm room. Fun fact about that, I think I had top 10 most captured flags in Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Anybody else in the world.
Wow, look at you now.
That's a resume builder right there.
Sure is. It sure is.
You could put that on an esports resume. You could.
My claim to fame there. It was interesting just kind of being a gamer and then working in the university. And I worked with, like I said, with campus dining services. A couple years into that, there was some centralization, and I found myself in a similar role, but with the Division of Student Affairs. So not to get too into the weeds, but I then started doing marketing for that entire division, which included campus dining services, but also Mizzou Rec and residential life and the student center and whatnot. So I was able to learn a lot more about what was happening at this university, who did what and how things happened.
Sure.
And then gaming kept growing and growing. And one day in 2000 and let me check my notes here. I put this whole timeline together, which was a blast this morning. Going
oh, really? I know. I saw it. I was very excited.
So we had a student employee in 2016 that worked for us. And he came to me one day and he said, I think you would love Overwatch. You got to check it out. And I was like, all right, well, I have an Xbox. So I got Overwatch like the day it came out. Put a couple months into it and fell in love. Never experienced a game like it. So I was like, wow, I think I'm pretty good at this. But everybody said, you're not good unless you're good on the PC. So it wasn't until 2016 that I went out and bought my first gaming PC to play Overwatch and PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which is my favorite game of all time.
Oh, PUBG was great.
I played PUBG last night. I play PUBG at least once a week. I love PUBG so much. So from 2016 until pretty much 2018, so about 2.5 years, I was working 8 to 5, and I started playing a lot of Overwatch. I started streaming Overwatch. I created the Twitch account. I got like 400 followers, decent amount of viewers every stream.
Yeah.
People at work started seeing me as the gaming guy.
Yep.
Which I was fine with. I was okay being with the gaming guy as long as they tuned in and watched the streams.
Yep.
Mizzou has obviously gone through a whole lot over the last 7-8 years. But at this time in 2018, there was talk of, okay, what new thing can we do at this university that would interest and excite the next generation of college students? And gaming was one of the items on the very short list of, this is something nobody really understands. Some colleges are getting involved, some local colleges getting involved, or at least, local Columbia College, of course, made a huge splash with their what they did, and then Maryville, of course, and some others. So there was a handful of people within student affairs and residential life that were trying to figure out what could this possibly look like. And I happen to be, like I said, the gaming guy in student affairs. So in November of 2018, we had a big meeting and they said, let's try to do something. We can try to put together some sort of esports program. And at the time, had no idea what that could be, what it would look like.
Is this the marketing team of ResLife still? Or not ResLife, Student Affairs?
That I'm working with?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm still working with them full time at this time, just kind of having conversations about what this could look like. And the conclusion that we come to is I will spend 10% of my time, paid time with the university, working on Mizzou Esports.
Just you?
Yes. Well, no, not just me. Me and then these two other guys. One's Tyler Page, the director of residential life, and then another Andrew Summer, who's no longer with the Division of Student Affairs. He's still at the University of Missouri system. But the three of us were kind of like, okay, let's figure this out. I was the gaming guy. Andrew was the business guy. Tyler was the director of the whole thing and made things happen. That sounded great. I spent a couple of weeks trying to learn as much as I could, put together some sort of plan. What could it look like to have 6 people playing Overwatch? Is it a club? Is it a student organization? What could it be? We start working with the news bureau. I meet some on-campus gamers. Arabella McIntyre is one of them, for example, who we met with. So there were some people on campus who were like, oh, this is cool. They knew exactly what this type of thing could become. So on December 11th, 2018, the day after my birthday, we go to the news bureau and we send out a press release that says, now loading Mizzou Esports.
Oh, what a birthday present.
A press release goes out. It says the University of Missouri is going to add esports in the fall. I think at that point we had determined that there would be some scholarships because Residential Life said that they could give us some room and board scholarships. Cool. So that's what I was working with. So I created the Mizzou Esports Twitter account in November. And then in December, we go in and we tell the world we're doing this. 48 hours later, we had thousands of students submit interest forms saying that they wanted to come to this school to play esports.
Really?
Wow.
For Overwatch specifically. Maybe League of Legends at the time, but mostly Overwatch.
Wow.
And we had a majority of the students who signed with us that first year reached out to us within the first 48 hours, which is incredible. So like Luke Hammock, for example, physics, he was on our first Overwatch squad, incredible Lucio player. He reached out on December 12th, sent a big email. I went through and read that email again this morning, which is pretty cool. It just said, I'm from Houston, Texas, and I would love to go to the University of Missouri to play Overwatch. So I screenshot that, and I'm like, sweet, we got a student from out of state.
Yeah, it's a real, tangible person who's coming here.
Yeah. So it did not take longer than that 48 hours for the university to realize this is much bigger than they thought it was going to be. It was like the second largest news item that had come out of the university that year in 2018.
Wow.
Kelly Bryant transferring here from Clemson. So it made a huge splash. And they came back to me and pretty much said, cannot be 10% of your job. It's going to have to be a full-time job. And we're going to have to open up that job as one that everybody can apply to. And it's going to be a new thing that started at the university, a full-time position working on this program. So we announced the program a month later in January. I had to apply for the job. They have a lot of people applied for that job too. And that's when I switched from interim head coach to, at the time, my title was head coach. But they told me essentially at the end of January, this is your full-time gig. And this space, 10,000 square feet. I wish I remember this. I had my talking points from my tours are a little rusty. But they gave us the space that we're in right now. It did not look anything like this. Since then, we've painted and changed the carpet and added. And
it was a computer lab, wasn't it?
There was a space that was one gigantic, pretty much empty classroom, which is now the public land center. And then the varsity room was a computer lab, which was fantastic because it had all of the technical side, what we needed, Ethernet ports and power and everything that we needed to have 25 high-end computers. It was ready to go for that at least. So then we got to work. January until August, I knew I had 8 months to turn this into something real, something legitimate. And what I knew was that I was in a unique position that I had worked with the university. I had traveled across the country doing recruiting for the university, answering questions from parents, meeting students who are interested in the school. I was never an official recruiter, but I would travel and answer questions. And I was able to talk to parents and make them feel comfortable about their students choosing
I was going to ask,
school.
how were those meetings back in 2018, 4 years ago, with the parents? Where what did they ask you? Is this real?
Yeah, for sure. Most of the parents at that time, when we would call their students, we would call their kids and we would say, hey, we're going to offer you room and board if you can sign this piece of paper and commit to coming here for a year. There were a handful of parents that would call me less than 10 minutes later and be like, my son just told me this. I don't know. This doesn't sound real.
It sounds like a scam.
It sure did. It sure did. So what we tried to do as quickly as possible, once we finalized that roster, we invited everybody who was coming to campus and their parents. And we had a Mizzou Esports day where we had 3 big golf carts. I called in the cavalry to help me, and we took them across campus. We did the full campus tour. We did lunch, showed them this facility, which at the time looked rough. It was kind of like
Oh, really?
Close your eyes and imagine this space a lot different by the time you get here in August. But that was a beautiful thing, what we did there, because the parents were like, wow, this is actually something amazing. This school is doing something unique. And the parents were incredible. All 3 years that I was involved in this, that part was great.
Yeah, that had to have been fun.
Yes.
Just walking them around.
Yeah, so I knew how to talk to them, though, differently than I would their students about the gaming piece of it. And I think that was extremely beneficial for allowing us to do what we did.
Yeah, and you could also talk to the kids as well, very hey, I play video games too. You have both
understand
sides
the world
of it.
they're in for sure, and then understand the things that are on the parents' minds, because they're not really worried about if they're going to be. I mean, they of course want their kids to be successful in League of Legends, but there's 20 other things first about them moving away for the first time that come to mind first. So we were able to make sure that we could build a program that would support the student, and then also make sure the parents and everybody else is whatever is going on in there, they don't really understand what it is. It's something great. It's something big. It's continuing to grow. So I realized that I needed to leverage all of the success that we had, any talking point that we could create, anything that would make a normal person go, I don't really understand what esports is, but what they're doing with this specific thing makes sense to me. So we sign a student to a scholarship and we say they're going to get room and board to play Overwatch. A normal person who's like, I don't really understand what esports is, goes, okay, I kind of get it. People get scholarships to play baseball.
Yeah.
They're getting scholarships to play this game. Okay, all right. And then we'd have a facility where they could walk through the facility and we'd say, this is the practice room. This is the VOD room. This is the coach's office. And they're like, okay. So they start to see it a little bit. So every win that we could get along the way, we would take that and then try to highlight that as much as we could and show that we were taking steps. Because a lot happened from January to August, and that's what is on this timeline that I created.
So it seems up until this point that it's all it's all unicorns and rainbows. It's all good, right?
Yes.
It's all we got this space, we have room and board, we have tuition.
It's the honeymoon phase.
I would say so. I would say the honeymoon phase. In the background, I was scrambling to learn as much as I could.
Yeah,
and I knew that there was a lot that I did not know. Obviously, coming in from not really in this industry, understanding a little bit of the gaming side, but I've never managed an esports program before. Some of these programs are run by ex-professional players. Some of them are run by ex-athletics employees.
Or millionaires as well.
Or rich
just
people
money.
that just have money and can make things happen for sure. So there was a lot to figure out in that regard. So pretty incredible how all of this shook out. But in March, Grandview University, which is in Des Moines, Iowa. Maybe, I don't know how far of a drive it is, but I drove there in March of 2019 for an esports clinic. And their thing was, we're going to teach universities how to start and run esports programs. So I'm like, I got to go to this. My boss says, no problem. And we roll in. And I roll in. I went to that by myself. I don't remember the specific who was all there. All I remember is I got there, I sat down, and Doc Haskell walks on stage, and he gave a 20-minute presentation about how Boise State esports went from an idea to what it is today. And if you guys have not seen Doc speak, or if you're not familiar with Doc, he's in charge of the Boise Esports program. He started it there. I've never seen a speech like that in person. It was incredible what he presented and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy gets it. Because a lot of the other schools I was talking to at the time was Maryville. I did go to Maryville and they gave me a tour, which was great. I went to Columbia College. They gave me a tour. I got to talk to the people from both programs. and answer questions. But at the end of the day, those schools are dramatically different than ours.
Yeah.
Boise State is pretty similar. Massive school. So Doc speaks. He gets off stage. I immediately went up to him. I shook his hand. I said, "My name's Kevin Reape at the University of Missouri. We're a big school. We're getting started." He's like, "Fantastic. You should shoot me an email." So I emailed him the next day when I got back home. And I said, first I went to my boss and I said, "This guy knows everything that I need to know in this stage of where we're at. Can I hire Doc as a consultant and have him answer questions and help me throughout this process, at least for like 3 months, make sure I'm making the right moves?" He said, "For sure." So that was an incredible win for me to meet Doc. I reached out to Doc. Doc was like, "Let's make it happen." He came to Columbia, spent the weekend with me. One of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. I still talk to him regularly today. So that was a huge win. I just had no idea what to expect at this conference. I go there, I meet Doc. Doc sets me on the right path.
What type of questions did you have? Like, do you have anything specific, like question you had, or you didn't know what you were supposed to do, so you went to Doc?
Yeah, at the beginning there was a lot of questions about what the day-to-day looks like from the student's perspective. And there's still so many different ways to do it. There were some schools like Columbia College where their esports program is in the athletic department. Yeah. So their students had to meet the requirements that the other athletic students were doing. So they had they had workout times that they had to go to. So when I learned that, I was like, okay, I could run a program like Gary Pinkel if I wanted to. And I could have these students up at 6 o'clock in the morning. We could have diet plans. We could do the whole thing and go crazy. And then there's some other programs that look dramatically different than that. So I wanted to see how Doc set that up within his college. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes of, I don't want to call it politics, but just different departments work together differently. Finances work differently, where depending on where you're at and what you're trying to do. If you're trying to raise money, you work with an advancement team that will help you with the relationship side for the donor or the company that you're trying to have a sponsorship with. Okay. I did not know that. Doc tells me how this works. We got a big he says he's got this big contract with these companies, walks me through how he made that work from a legal side on the back end. So those types of questions, just to make sure I was crossing the T's and dotting the I's.
Out of curiosity, Boise State has, from what I can tell, it has one of the best, not only esports programs, but it also has one of the best esports media programs. So when you were talking to Doc, did you talk at all about the media aspect and like broadcasting, or was it just strictly esports?
Mostly esports, but I knew that's one of the big things that made me so interested in Boise, was because, not to take anything away from what they have from the media side, but I knew our school and the journalism school could match that overnight if we wanted to. So that was another piece that I've loved their studio. I've not seen it in person, but Doc, we've seen the pictures and the videos from their space, their facility, the actual technical side. He sent me, he's like, and Doc's incredible, but one day I was like, "What's in this broadcast studio of yours?" And he sent me an Excel list with everything that was on it. It was like fantastic. So so definitely it came up for sure. Talked about all sides of it.
Yeah. And so Doc came to town and you were talking to him, and after you got that, you had a better sense of what you wanted to do with the program. And so when you left town, like, what was the next step? Like, where did you go from there?
What before we do that, what did you want to do with the program? What were your main priorities? What was your main central goal of the of the program? Did you want to win the world championship, or did you want to grow locally in town, or did you want to just create a community? What was? Yeah,
at the time I wanted to take over the world and do it. I wanted to do it all. I wanted to do it bigger and better than anybody had ever seen possible. And we had a lot of momentum going. So I said, "Doc, come." I meet Doc in March. What's happening in the background is our advancement team, these people I'm talking about who help fundraise and raise money. We're also talking to an individual who has a lot of interest in esports and also a lot of money.
Yes.
So I'm getting coffee with him and saying, this is kind of what we're thinking about creating. And it's March. Nothing has actually happened, but on paper, I have some of the best students in the world have reached out and said they wanted to come to this program. So I'm like, I think we're going to be able to get these people. They're committing. They're signing these letters of intent. They're from all over the country. Here's their ranks in Overwatch and League of Legends. So in March, I also say, I'm meeting Chris Haskell. Here's what Boise's doing. He says, okay, I'll give you a significant amount of money if you also have a Rocket League team.
Oh, okay.
And I
Mm.
said, no problem. Let's do it. So we
There you
added
go.
Rocket League, and he donated at that time, committed to $260,000
Wow.
to the program.
That was the first donation you had.
Yes.
That was the first chunk of
Wow.
money.
Yes. So at this point, imagine me having no
Yeah.
idea that any of this existed
Yeah.
5 months ago. 5 months later, we got $250,000. We have some of the best gamers in the country committed to coming here. And I'm traveling and meeting Doc and meeting people and talking to people.
Mhm.
It's insane, the ride that I've been on up until
Yeah.
that point. And we're just getting started.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
what's crazy.
Wow.
So then March to June, we start signing the papers. We get the students to say they're definitely coming. The parents come, and we do that whole visit. Everybody's excited for August.
How many students at first?
25.
Okay, so it was all the games. You already had all the games.
We committed to all of them because we added Rocket League at the very end.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was a little worried about how that would shake out. But I met Ethan Baxter, who was at the time a veterinarian student, like an upper level veterinarian student, which is tough because that's a very, very challenging degree program. But he was one of the best Rocket League players in the state of Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, can you help me put together the best team in the state of Missouri? And he said, yeah, I think I have a handful of contacts. And if I can get these guys to say they're going to come here, we'll be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
A handful of them were at other colleges, of course.
Yep.
So they did transfer to the university.
Oh, they did.
They
You-
did.
You lured them in.
Yes,
Wow.
we did, which is phenomenal. So this comes later, but spoiler alert, that team did win the national championship
What?
in the very first semester of the
No
program.
way.
Huh?
Oh my gosh.
You might be able to see the trophy
Oh,
from the-
I can see it
from
right
your
there. There
seat,
it is.
Kenny.
Oh,
Yeah.
how long has that been there?
since let me check here, November 27th, I think. So everything's moving very, very quickly. In June, I realized we need to have, I realized this well before this, but we needed equipment.
Yeah. Obviously.
Equipment is very expensive. So there was another potential for some sort of sponsorship or partnership.
Mhm.
And I ended up reaching out to MSI, I shouldn't have started to say it, MicroStrategy Inc. Not strategy. I can't. Microsystems, whatever it is.
I think
MSI.
it's software, maybe.
I thought it was science.
Is it science? I actually don't know.
You're sitting in front of a computer. You need Jamie to pull it up.
Hey, Jamie, can you pull it up?
Anyways.
Okay, so we reach out to MSI, computer company based out of California, and we jump on a phone call,
Uh-huh.
a lot of phone calls. And I was in my house one day, and the guy called. He said, "We want to make this happen.
Mm.
How many years are you thinking, and how much overall value in a sponsorship or in equipment and everything else?" And we landed on $250,000 over the course of 4 years.
The evaluation for how much the sponsorship would be worth.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So they were going to give us equipment and cash
Yep.
over the course of 4 years with the value of $250,000.
Wow.
So that was secured in June, which is incredible. So at that point, we're talking over $500,000 on paper raised. For
Yeah.
this
So
program.
did you expect either of the donations? Or I mean, one donation and one MSI partnership. Did you expect that?
I was confident. I was
You were
a very
confident? Yeah.
person when I was talking to them. I pulled the $250,000 number, made that one up. Not made it up, but it was like, that would be, I like that
Yeah.
number. I wanted to be
Why
over.
not?
Yeah, I needed to be
It's
over.
your lucky number, you know.
Yes.
$250,000.
Yeah. So I was like, I had to put us over. That's $500,000 is a sexy number.
It is.
So-
it is.
They agreed to that, and this became the MSI Training Facility, and all of our students for that first year, at least for the first few years, were playing on MSI desktops.
Yep.
And MSI monitors, and had some MSI laptops as well. So that's June. So now we're 6 months into this whole project.
Uh-huh.
Still, nobody has stepped foot in this facility and played a game.
Okay.
We've not won nothing has started.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
No one's even here yet.
No one's here. And the facility is still very much getting closer, but not quite done. July 16th through 19th is the NACE National Convention. We joined NACE. Doc told me join NACE. NACE is the National Association of Collegiate Esports. At the
Yep.
time, they had 150 members. 94% of all varsity esports programs were members of NACE. So I was like, well, we're definitely going to be a member of NACE.
Yeah.
We paid the dues. They have a conference. We go to the conference. At this time, I made it pretty known that Mizzou Esports was coming and we were going to dominate. We
Yeah.
were going to take over the world. So we go to this conference
Uh-huh.
and they say, we're going to have a new board of directors, which will be like 8 people
Okay.
and the executive director. Let's do some nominations. Somebody nominated me. Might have been Doc Haskell. And I was elected that day at that conference to the NACE board of directors.
Turned it down?
No, I took it. I said yes. I was a
Oh,
part
so you
of
could
this.
do both.
I was a board of directors member for all 3 years that we were doing esports. But that was another thing I had in my back pocket to be like, here's our program is unstoppable because we're doing all of these things.
And this was before it even started, really. You were
this is
already on the
July,
board
so
of
we're
directors.
still not quite there. We're still not to the students yet.
I can't wait for someone to come in.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh my gosh. I know. I was like, this is wild. And looking back on that's pretty crazy, of course. But at the time, we were the biggest school that was a member of NACE. It was huge. I mean, this pretty big deal that we were in there and exciting times. So, my goal was to kind of give a voice to the larger schools that were at the time not really part of esports. Now it's kind of shaken out a little more. So finally, we get to August. Students are going to show up, and this whole thing is about to start, and we're going to get going on everything that we spent the last 8 months building, raising a significant amount of money for, and an incredible story. So on move-in day, it was August 10th, 2019, early move-in. All of our students were coming in that day so that we could have 1 week of practice before school started and anything got rolling. Riley Putnam was one of our Rocket League players. His mom pulled up in a minivan on move-in day. Right behind her, I'm not kidding, I think I have a photo of it, the UPS truck pulled up with all of the MSI computers.
Oh my God.
They were delivered on the exact same day at the exact same time the students started moving in, which is the luckiest thing that's ever happened. I mean, not the luckiest. There's a lot of luck that went involved in this entire thing.
But at the time, you just want to take over the world.
Yes, right. So it was pretty cool because the first night when all the students got here, we were able to, and it was great for me because they were all able to unbox their own computers and have fun setting those up. And it's kind of a 2 birds with 1 stone.
A bit of free labor involved.
A little bit. But it was
we planned for this.
Yes, that's how it probably appeared. So also at that NACE convention, another thing that's wild about this. So I get elected to the board of directors, and I'm hanging out in this lobby of, I think we were at a hotel, and this guy yells, "Hey Mizzou, let's chat." And I was like, all right. Well, it turns out that was John Green, who goes by Speakeasy.
Oh, I know him.
We are familiar with John.
I'm sure you are. So John has significantly impacted my life in many, many, many ways. But the way that we met, so he said, "Hey Mizzou," and he was like, "All right, I got nothing going on.
I guess
Let's
I'm
go to
Mizzou.
dinner." We go and chat for like 3 hours over dinner, and I tell him my whole vision, how I want to take over the world. And he's like, "I kind of want to take over the world too. That's what I'm trying to figure out how to do it." I was like, "Well, let's do this together."
Let's do it together.
So John and I worked together from that moment on until, he's still working with the program, which is unbelievable. I emailed him the other day. He's listed as an adjunct professor with the Mizzou Journalism School, which is pretty darn amazing.
Employee.
So incredible story there. But so just like I met Doc at that one, I met John at this one. And it was like I had a pretty good stack of support on my side. Students show up. We put those computers together, and then it was time to get to work. So that was where we had to figure out what is everybody actually going to do, and what are they actually going to compete in, and what does the day-to-day look like.
Did you hire anyone?
Is that what?
Did you hire anyone?
We did. John was a staff member.
Okay.
Esports students are fantastic because they were driven by a lot of this stuff, and a lot of what came out of this program was completely student run. Some of it, really. I mean, they, especially from like the broadcast side and the media piece.
The media club Jim advises us.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's all students.
Yeah, for sure, which is great because that was kind of a struggle. Of course, was the staffing piece. If we could, So I was working a lot. Let's say that we were all working a lot, but there's a lot going into it at that time. Which is fine. I mean, I had the coolest job of all time. So I was like, let's go.
You did have a cool job. I remember when I first came 2 years ago, and I was like, that's a cool job.
Yeah, it's pretty darn sweet. From August to October, we kind of get rolling. We've built this huge I don't want to call it impression that we were going to be successful, but there were a lot of things, like I said, that were going in our favor. Blizzard came out with, for the first time ever, the Overwatch Collegiate Invitational.
Yep.
100 and some odd teams could compete. 12 automatically get in. The University of Missouri was in automatically. Never playing a game before. Amazing as a program.
Awesome.
League of Legends, there was a company called Midwest Esports. They reached out. They said, we're going to put together a traveling conference just for League of Legends. So your students get in a van. We're going to go to like 7 schools. Ended up being like 4 or 5 schools every semester for in-person competitions. I said, great, let's do it. We signed up. Rocket League, I did not know much about. I knew we had an incredible squad, and Ethan was kind of in charge of their direction. So I learned a whole lot about Collegiate Rocket League and CRL and what this all means. Like 2 weeks after school starts, Overwatch is in this invitational. League of Legends has trips on the calendar. And Rocket League is in CRL. I don't remember when they officially made it in, but it was like September 27th. We make it a secure spot in Collegiate Rocket League. The first match we compete in is like 25,000 viewers on Twitch.
Really?
So I screenshot this. And CRL, Christ. If people listening aren't familiar, they will stream their matches on Twitch.
Yep.
Very high quality. So there were like 3 guys in a studio sitting on a couch. Kind of looked like a post-game NFL talk show. But they were talking about Rocket League. 25,000 people watching. University of Missouri, black and gold. We were going up against other major schools. So I was like, well, this is fantastic. It's another one of those things that I can send to people who don't understand esports. And they're like, all right, wait a minute. You guys are playing
in front of a crowd.
Akron, and there's 25,000 people watching. Like, wait, I know who Akron is. That's a lot of people. These guys are breaking down the action. They're going to post-game interviews with some of the players. So then I can continue to build on our success because I'm like, well, League of Legends just traveled to Iowa last week and we're going to Wichita next week.
Take a picture.
Yeah, snapping pictures, tweeting everything. And people start to see, okay, they were serious. This is actually going to happen.
I do want to ask, I know we'll get into it a little bit later as well, but if you don't mind jumping ahead a little bit, when Rocket League won the NACE championship, did you get a lot of recognition from the school, the university itself of
yes.
let's take this even farther, yada yada?
I think so. That was a hugely impactful moment for us. NACE, one thing that was amazing about it was that it was at DreamHack Atlanta.
Yeah.
So we were flown. They paid for our tickets to go to Atlanta, Georgia.
Yep.
We got there like on Friday. Our tournament, the championship was on Sunday. So the guys had 48 hours to go pretty much enjoy DreamHack, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And then Sunday we played Aquinas College in the championship. We beat them and then ended up dropping one match against them, which was the only match that we dropped like the entire season.
That's crazy.
So the guys were unstoppable.
Insane.
It was insane. Absolutely insane. But then I send the tweet out, maybe us holding the trophy, the family picture, and I say, I don't remember what the tweet said. I mean, it blew up. Hundreds of retweets, tons of engagement, lots of comments.
Yep.
And then the University of Missouri is sharing it from the @Mizzou accounts. And,
wow. Yeah.
I have more than dozens, a lot of emails from people who are saying, congratulations, reaching out. And it really put us on the map with, I was able to use that talking point for the next, until I was done.
I mean, we still use the talking point.
Yeah. So from that point, I would say yes. Yeah, no doubt. It was huge for us. I wouldn't have had it any other way. Other than
you took over the world.
Yeah.
At what point is the world taken over?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say that's when. We'll say we took it over then.
Okay.
I mean, this is all leading up to a tragic circumstance that we are all familiar with that I'll get to here soon. But we did not know at the time in November that we were just a handful of months of this entire thing coming to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, you say the journey, that's kind of a big part of it, unfortunately. Because up until March of 2020, it was amazing. There was a time where in the first 2 months of the semester, League of Legends had been to Des Moines, Springfield, and Wichita. We were going to go to Chicago the next weekend. I had received a phone call that we were potentially going to go to Hawaii for a Rocket League tournament.
Wow.
During the Maui Invitational. And then I was invited to something in like San Francisco or something the week before Hawaii, which was going to work out perfectly back to back. So I remember I went to some other conference. It might have been the next year's esports clinic at Grandview where I met Doc.
Mm-hmm.
I went back, and that was the first time somebody had said, "Did you guys hear about COVID? Do you know what this thing is?" And I was like, not really familiar with it at the time.
I am too busy for that.
Yeah, but I was in a van with the students, and one of the students in the van was very sick. Maybe it may have been a patient 0.
Wow.
But we got back from that trip on a Sunday, and then not 2 weeks later, I closed the facility down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think that's probably when the momentum, it stops right there?
I don't want to say stops, but
I mean, surely it was like exponential growth and then just kind of like flatlined, or
Yeah.
about as close as you can get to flatlining with a program.
it's incredible to think about where we were. And like I said, going through this timeline is like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's heartbreaking, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's hard to complain too much about COVID because personally, I was not impacted. No, I did not lose any family members to COVID and
Yeah.
whatnot. And,
Sure.
so from that standpoint, I can't be like, oh my God, my COVID was really bad.
Yeah.
My COVID experience, but it really did impact it. Because like I said, the week before, we're having trips planned. We're having conversations with more donors.
Mm-hmm.
There's companies that want to get involved. This land center that
Mm-hmm.
just opened up a couple weeks ago was going to open up fall of 2020.
Really?
August 15th, 2020, cut the ribbon, doors open, big
Wow.
thing. I went to a basketball game in the president's suite
Mhm.
I got to talk to Moon Choi there and talk about some bigger sponsorships that were going to happen with some other folks. And a lot of that just came to an absolutely screeching halt because when
Yeah.
COVID hit, a lot of people think, well, you guys are great. Esports is pandemic proof
Yeah.
because we all could just continue to do our thing. And in a way we could. There was only a very brief period of time where competitions were straight up canceled.
Yeah.
And there was this brief time where I was like, I don't want anybody to do anything. When it was really weird, like March 20th.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I remember. I
Yeah.
remember.
So
I mean, everybody just left Columbia. It was crazy. I was one of the last people here, and it was a ghost town.
Mhm.
All of the dining halls were shut down. Like it was really freaky. But yeah.
Yeah, it was bizarre. So I wanted the students to focus on their own situations.
Yeah,
and everybody
that's another thing is that when you talk about with all these other programs, they have to cover their own grounds. When COVID happens, they sometimes don't have time to let's expand. Let's keep talking about this.
Yeah. So they let me
I can see the tear coming from your eye.
let me go through this.
Yeah.
So there was a time during COVID when I don't want to say I felt sorry for myself, but I was pretty bummed because
Mhm.
a lot of this was stopping, or donors.
Yeah. How couldn't you be?
Potential sponsors would say, right now we're just not in a place where we can donate money.
Exactly.
We can't do this. Supply chains, we're not going to be able to get you this product. The land center, big time pause,
Oh yeah.
which would be paused for quite some time. That's not to say we didn't have some success though. So I felt sorry for myself for a little bit, and I was like, we're still going to try to take over the world. We'll just do it remotely. So at the time, Missouri Online, which is the online educational piece to the University of Missouri system, they wanted to get their name out to as many people as possible as an online education opportunity. So then they became another big sponsor of ours too, which was great. So that was something that was a big win for us post-COVID. We could say we made some money. We have a new partner.
Well, was it harder to like sell that though when COVID was going on? Like, cause was it easier or harder than when you had nothing to go off of? There were no games being played and you still managed to sell it. Was it easier or harder when
Well, that's
COVID
a
was
good
going
question.
on?
Harder.
Yeah.
Harder, just because so much was out of people's control. And with an unknown future like that, it was so hard for companies to commit to any significant amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
They just had no idea what to expect. But that didn't last too long. I mean, at the end of the day, once we got to 2021, campus was kind of back open, people playing with masks, people could come in here. And then, so May of 2020, we were featured in the Mizzou magazine, which was pretty sweet. So you asked about the university kind of being behind this program. There was a whole spread in Mizzou's magazine that goes to all alumni, and it was just about Mizzou Esports.
Oh wow. Okay.
So that was pretty good.
Yeah.
And then I think that helped us get that Missouri Online partnership. July of 2021, we hosted a summer camp in the facility. So that was kind of like, all right, we're almost kind of like back to normal a little bit. That was for high school students. Rocket League, November of 2020. So this was still fall semester of 2020. The Maui Invitational I told you about, we were potentially going to go to Hawaii.
Yeah.
They flipped that to a online competition that was going to be played on ESPN2.
Oh,
Wow.
So the Rocket League team got to play on ESPN.
Wow.
Cool.
So that was another win we're going to add. We're going to talk about it. We're still alive. We're still doing this. Here we are, even though there's a pandemic. So that's the type of thing we were doing throughout that time, as much as we could, but just trying to find those cool, exciting things that we could participate in. At the end of the day, esports is pretty great because our students still had competition, things they could look forward to. There were schedules, and like the Midwest Esports was tough because their whole business model was let's go travel from school to school. You take that out of it, and then it's just kind of a normal tournament.
Yeah, that was a big part of the league team. I know back in the day was they were traveling almost every weekend.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. I remember because I wanted to play league and I didn't want to travel that much. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like they play all the time.
Yeah.
So that was something I had to think about. I mean, and then obviously COVID happened, but yeah, that was a big part of what they did.
Yeah, we probably traveled total 7 or 8 times with the league, and I loved it because we would go rent a 12-passenger van.
Yep. And it just all hop in.
It all happened, and I would drive us to the middle of some school, who knows where, and we would be posted up at a hotel. That was fantastic. It was good. I mean, because it felt like athletics. Like it was like, this is what esports is. I mean, this is what it should be, I think. And so I love that business model. I hope it comes back because I think that that's what collegiate esports needs, is that type, where the students are traveling to a different school, they're together.
And obviously talking about COVID and sort of like how things sort of screeched to a halt with Mizzou. I mean, obviously it wasn't just Mizzou. It felt like esports and, really everything just kind of grinded to a halt. And so like only now are we really like starting to get back to that growth. Yeah. Like not just Mizzou Esports, but all esports in general.
Yeah, I don't know how much you are still following Mizzou Esports, but the league team traveled to St. Louis for a LAN this past month, and then Valorant, I think, has already traveled 3 times this semester. They went to KC, and then if they would have won in KC, they would have went to Dallas, which would have been really cool.
Yeah, awesome.
But yeah, good. I mean, it's, the traveling is definitely coming back. I don't think that's going anywhere.
Yeah, good. So
I mean, I remember back in the day, there might have just been like rumors, but like this was supposed to be like a stage. I don't know if that was ever true, but that was like rumors going around that like this was going to be the LAN Center was going to be a stage where like people could come and watch.
Yeah, there was a lot of iterations of what that space was going to be, and it changed throughout the COVID process. So I think at the beginning that was kind of my thought. Yeah, well, we would have students in there playing, and then you could go and watch them. Which is kind of what Boise has set up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was leaning towards. I thought, I don't know, maybe the players wouldn't want to play on a stage like that. So we went with this TV spectating model that you guys have now, where it's a bunch of couches and then you could watch the matches or any other match too.
Okay, so I do want to ask, was there any unexpected, I mean, besides COVID, like let's say before COVID, were there any unexpected like tragedies that happened before that? Maybe not tragedies, but just like something you totally didn't expect happened and you were like, gosh, like I could have never have accounted for this.
I don't think so. Not tragedies. Things move slow, at least slower than I would want them to.
Yeah.
And that's just like with everything, and
yeah, we talked about it a little before the podcast, but that kind of seems, especially at a huge university like this, it's that it has to go through so many departments to get anything really done within a department, because they're all like sort of linked together. And I know you talked about like learning a lot about how this works, right? So you were also marketing, right, when you came to Mizzou Esports. Can you talk to us about that, or like, did that help?
Yeah, it helped tremendously. So my background is in marketing and communications. So branding is something that I'm passionate about. I'm not a graphic designer, but I consider myself a person who has an eye for what looks good and what doesn't, and how to tell a story and how things should look, how to present yourself, how to build a brand. And that's essentially what we were doing for the first 8 months. I mean, I attribute some of the success that we had then to the fact that I was able to take all of those small wins that we had and make sure that the right people knew about them and make sure that it looked good. So I was the only one who tweeted from the account until I left, I think. Not really. It was at least for the first year and a half. I was very not worried, but I was careful about what was shared and how it was shared. And then like the communication piece to it is another one. Just being able to talk to people, send emails, and make sure that the right information gets across. Yeah. Extremely valuable.
So you talked about, or you mentioned leaving. How was your transition out? We're coming up on, I think, a year now of you being out of the program. How was the transition out of the program?
Yeah, so COVID was interesting because not only did it just totally derail the path I was on with esports, but I was also, like everybody else, finding myself with a significant amount of time to spend at home. I was home for a long time. I didn't come back to campus right away either. So, I mean, looking back, like I started my own podcast halfway through COVID. Spent a lot of time reading, doing all kinds of things, thinking about life. And not to get too deep, but it was like, what is all of this? What are we doing?
I really want the world?
Exactly. So there was a time during COVID where I realized what was important to me and what I wanted to do. Yeah. And I guess long story short, in August of 2021, my son was born. Callahan, who's the sweetest boy in the whole world. And from August until October, I tried my best to make it work.
Yeah.
And I knew as he got older and the world started to open back up, I would not be able to be the type of father or director of the program that I wanted to be.
Yeah, sure.
No matter what. So
you're going to have to choose one.
It's an impossible situation.
Yeah. Right? I mean, I would say so. And like I have figured it out potentially, but I also knew this program at the very least deserve somebody who could put in the time necessary to make it be what it needs to be.
Of course.
So I came to that decision late 2021 and then announced that almost exactly 3 years to the day that we announced the start of the program. I announced that I was stepping away. So it was a 3-year run that went by in a flash. I don't think I would change anything about it looking back.
Really? Yeah.
I miss it though. I mean, there's like making this list of all the fun stuff, reading some of the emails that I sent back in the day. Like March 10th, 2020, before it all hit, it was unbelievable. Yeah. But I mean, everything happens for a reason. COVID sucked, but it made me realize what I wanted to personally get out of life and do in life. And so far that's transition has worked out quite well because nobody can see my son, but he's that's adorable.
It's a big topic in your podcast that you talk about. There's a question that you ask every podcast. I did a little research on it.
So the Final Vibe podcast, what does legacy mean to you?
Is that something that you thought about a lot in COVID?
Yes.
Yeah.
I obsessed over it during COVID. What do I want to do? What do I want to be remembered by? Or by the people who are close to me, at least. I don't necessarily. I also got to a point where I didn't really care about other people who weren't like in my circle, you know?
No, I've definitely been there before.
Yeah. So Final Vibe was an incredible journey in itself. I didn't really know what it was going to be, called it a lifestyle brand, but I was trying to build it as I went. It's kind of my COVID thing to keep me sane. So I woke up every morning, I would write a newsletter.
It's not Overwatch.
Come up with people to play some Overwatch, of course.
PUBG.
Needed some other stuff to do too. Yes, a focus on spending a lot more time to think about what I wanted to do in life. And yeah.
So you did that podcast for a year, and then nowadays you're not in the esports program at all. You've moved on from there. Now you have a kid, and so life's basically completely changed for you. It's only been a year, but you probably feel like a whole new person in a sense, right?
I do. Yeah. And like going through this, like you can tell how fast it changed when this whole thing started. Yeah. So it's pretty wild. But I kind of just embrace it. I embrace the chaos, the change, and I love the path that I'm on. That is for sure. Yeah. So what I did when I stepped away, I started a role with the True Last College of Business, which is right down the street where I graduated from. So I'm with their marketing and communications team.
Did you have that lined up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I assume so, yeah.
Yes. So I wanted to stay here because Mizzou is home to me. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at now, and I love it. But it is very much 8 to 5. I go home at 5 o'clock, and I don't have to be back until 8 o'clock.
Yeah, this is definitely. I don't know if it was necessarily even an 8 to 5 at all. I mean, did this ever feel like an 8 to 5 to you?
No, never. No, I mean, which was fine at the time because it was fun. Like I never like worked for an hour when I was doing esports.
Yeah.
But I was doing something related to esports from about 9 or 10 a.m. until 10 or 11 p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, like nonstop, because the beginning part of the day is like, let's make sure everybody knows what we're doing. I'm sending the right emails. I'm making the contacts happen with people who work normal hours.
Mhm.
And then right when they all go home, we have all of these matches and everything that happens on a day-to-day with the student. That doesn't even start until 6 p.m., 7 p.m.
Mhm.
And sometimes it doesn't end until 10, 11, 12. So at the beginning, when I was sending out the tweets about the score updates and sending the emails to the sponsors and whatnot, I mean, it was like all day, every day.
Wow. I remember when I was on JV, it was like Kevin is like probably in a meeting, like don't bother him. And you were in a meeting all the time.
A lot of calls.
I remember that.
Yeah. I think what I love the most is like being in person.
Yeah.
The students were here.
Mhm.
That's what I missed the most from COVID, because then it would be like all those meetings and stuff, but just on Discord and Zoom. And
Yeah.
I get a lot of my energy and excitement from being with other people.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, so now I'm back at the business school, and that schedule is great because it lets me pick up my son from daycare every night, hang out with him until he goes to bed. Still get to play games in the evenings.
Oh yeah.
But it did check that box that I was looking to check, which was kind of a more, I'll call it normal work schedule.
Is that time that you have to kind of relax and play games? Is that something important to you that you hold dear? Like you want to spend an hour a day playing PUBG or whatever?
I would say so. I have a lot of hobbies. I like to. I'm pretty deep in the I'll say Twitter. I like Twitter. I'll say that broadly as a hobby. If you're into Twitter, I think that will make sense to some people.
Some would call it an addiction.
It's definitely an addiction for sure. Yeah.
Oh, that's how it goes.
Some say 250. I say $250,000. You know.
Yeah, but I like a bunch of newsletters that I read, playing a bunch of games. I don't know. It's just kind of been. I've tried my best to just for the last year relax, spend time with my family, learn what I want to learn about, figure out what I don't know about that I want to learn about. And that's kind of been a lot of my focus over the last pretty much 2 years, really. But yeah.
So let's say, let's go 25 years down the line. Let's go 17 years down the line. All right. Callahan is 18. He moves out. Okay. You got a bunch more time on your hands. Do you come back?
Oh, gosh.
Oh my god,
that would be incredible.
What a loaded question.
Are
you doing anything in 17 years? What's your calendar look like? Do you have anything lined up?
You're going to be bored again. I'm just saying.
No, I would totally, in a situation like that, if they would have me, absolutely. At the very least, I'll just come back once a year and tell these stories.
Yeah.
So you did mention Twitter. And we got to talk about the tweet.
Yes.
Everybody's talking about the tweet.
Yes, at least briefly. We do have to talk about it.
Yeah.
So recently, there was a tweet put out by the Mizzou Esports Twitter account that very, very briefly said 3 words, but 3 words that will never leave any of our minds.
Sure.
I miss her. When you see a tweet like that, when a tweet like that is put onto your timeline, what is your first thought?
Did you laugh? Did you cry?
I didn't cry.
Did you think they were talking about you?
As a Twitter addict, I did see that tweet right away. Yeah. I don't know if it had any engagement when I saw it. And I knew also right away what it was, like what it was supposed to be doing.
Yeah. You knew it was a grab for the younger audiences.
Yeah.
You know, it was a grab, let's be a little quirky.
It's what corporate Twitter does. I mean, it's the same sort of thing on a smaller scale.
And like I said, for the beginning, I was controlling of the Twitter, and I had opinions about other esports programs' Twitters. Like I said,
yeah,
I never wanted our account to be the one that said tweeted "Good morning."
Okay, sure.
Or GM, like those accounts. And then 20 people reply, and they're like, "Good morning, good morning."
Like Maryville.
I didn't say that, but I think maybe
I said that. You didn't say anything.
maybe they do that. I don't know. But I was definitely too controlling of it over the beginning. But I was just also that type of tweet. It works, obviously. I think I saw that it was taken down.
It was taken down,
but it had probably more engagement than the Rocket League Championship tweet.
That's what I was going to say. It had 40 retweets, 400 likes, 50 comments. Dang, and it wasn't just like random people. It was other esport universities. Yeah. Their Twitters like engaging with it and retweeting it. There was University of Missouri is a Twitter account with like 10,000 followers, and it's about the university. It's like a meme account for the university. Yeah. And they retweeted it, and they said, "What else from Mizzou Esports at 2 a.m.?" And that also got a lot of engagement on it. So the tweet did well. It did do what it was meant to do, you know? And it was funny. You know, a lot of people liked it, at least the people that I've talked to. So they took it down. All right. What do you think about that?
I would have said... I mean,
it is a tough question.
It is a tough question. I would be okay with it staying. I think after we did set the tone of the program, and once people knew we were legit, I think it's okay for the socials to take a little bit more personal approach, hit the culture, do what they got to do. So I get it, but I also wouldn't have tweeted it because I would have known it would probably have to be deleted. Yeah. Did it have to be deleted?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's...
Well, so Tyler said I guess he had a meeting with the social team, and he was like, it's not esports related, so it has to be taken down.
Right.
However, you know, on the other side, it's the most engaging tweet, so it's like,
yeah, sure.
What are you gonna do?
It's an interesting sort of counterbalance, and it's hard to find a middle ground, because if you are an esports program and you want to be taken seriously, but you want to build engagement, it's tough to do both at once. And so some programs might take a very, you know, like standard approach, just tweeting out what matches are happening, who won, whatever. And then some might go completely down the meme rabbit hole and just, you know, they'll tweet out that same stuff, but in between they'll tweet out good morning and stuff like that, or what have you. And so, you know, I am not part of the social media department, but I would say that I probably would have tweeted it myself, because if it's obviously not a guarantee that you're going to get engagement, but if nothing else, it'll be unique, and it'll give you an idea of what people like to see out of social media.
Yeah, and another part about that, I mean, I talked to Brandon about it, and he asked me if I thought the tweet would do well, and I was like, it will do well. It's a fantastic tweet because it is unique to Mizzou's standards and brands.
Yeah.
If we just commented good morning every morning and like did all these funny, like quirky meme stuffs with the Twitter, it wouldn't be funny if we said I miss her. You know, it'd just be like a normal average tweet. However, I mean, I don't know if we've ever tweeted that before.
No way. So there was a tweet when I was with Campus Dining Services. We had an athletic director at the time who quit kind of unexpectedly, and people were pretty pissed.
Oh.
And I think he left like in the middle of the night, if I'm not mistaken. Like
wow.
Just quit, got on a plane, and left. So I tweeted from the Campus Dining Services account. The tweet is still up. Leaving the university? ? Make sure to stop by Mizzou Market, Hit Street, for snacks for the plane.
See, that's good because it's
the peace
related.
Emoji.
Wow.
Popped off. I think maybe not their most popular tweet still to this day, but it went crazy for like a day, because like I don't know if Barstool got in on it. It was like one of those where it was people were like, damn, they're really pretty wild. Campus Dining Services.
So like how many likes, how many retweets? Do you remember?
Let me pull it up.
But in any case, it was that balance. It found that middle ground.
Yeah, I think so. My boss and his boss were both traveling, and I spent the rest of the day worrying that I was going to get fired. I don't think anybody, apparently some folks within athletics thought it was great. So we'll take that.
There you go.
I think, I mean, a lot of people in esports thought the I miss her tweet was great, you know. I mean, it goes so far up.
I've seen a wide array of opinions on it, you know. Some people loved it.
262 retweets.
262?
Wow.
583 likes.
That's a good ass tweet, right?
216 quote tweets from Campus Dining Services, nonetheless. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
No one knew Campus Dining Services. Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, it's it's a hard balance, but it's one that's I think worth trying to strike at least once. Obviously, it got deleted, so it's one of those, you get shoved in the box and you're not going to go out of it again. But
Yeah.
I mean, it was fun. It was a fun experiment.
It was fun. I think that finding a balance is definitely like the right way to do it. I think that if I was Tyler Page, I would like leave it up and then like you can do these little unique, quirky tweets, but as long as they're actually unique, not like don't do it once a week,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it has to be funny, like your tweet.
You can't beat the dead horse. You have to keep it alive somehow. Thank you very much, Kevin Reape, for being on today's episode of the Respawn Podcast. It was a blast.
It is a blast. Let's plug Kevin's seminar that he's running.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
So you went to a seminar in Boise with Doc, right? And now you are going to have your own sort
That's
of
true.
seminar.
Kind of in a similar fashion. Yeah.
So it says, join Kevin Reape, founder and former general manager of Mizzou Esports, to hear all about the growing esports industry and how a business degree can open the door to career opportunities. Learn about the pros and cons of working in the world of gaming, including coaching, managing, marketing, branding, broadcasting, and how to set yourself apart in one of the fastest growing industries in the world. Now, I have to ask, did you write this?
I think so.
Because that is well written.
Thank you. I think I did. I'll have to check. And I may have had some of it sent to me and I doctored something up.
Yeah.
That does sound pretty good.
It does, right?
Yeah, it does.
That's pretty solid.
I mean,
yeah.
hey.
Tell us about it, though. What is it?
So it's called an EDGE event. At the business school, students can attend a lot of events that happen every single week, and they get points for attending these, and they're on all kinds of different topics, and students can pick out which ones seem interesting to them. And the person who's in charge of that program, she reached out and she said, if you were still interested in esports, could you have something esports related? And I think some of my past and the steps that I took to be set up for success, jumping into an industry that I really knew nothing about, but still was able to find some success in, are more traditional business skills and other skills that can be taught and learned.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's going to be probably an hour, I think, November 17th, I believe, from 2 to 3.
Yes.
But I'm going to do my best to give a kind of a background of some of the things that I've done in my past, how it's prepared me for success, and then how others could do the same thing if they want to get in the industry. As a person who's not in the industry now, but
Yeah, but still.
The industry, it's not going anywhere.
No,
not at all. And well, I'll say it again. Thank you so much, Kevin,
thank you.
for being
appreciate it,
on
guys.
this episode. And if you're out there, make sure to let us know what you thought about Kevin. Let us know what you want us to talk about next. And share, engage with the content.
Yes.
Comments. Let us know whatever is on your mind. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Thank you.